Welcome. I'm Lisa Nielsen, Director of Digital Literacy and Citizenship for the Office of the General Counsel at the New York City Department of Education. Today we're going to be looking at the New York City Department of Education's social media guidelines. To start, it's important that we understand what social media is. If you're not quite sure, please pause this video and take a look at the following URL, tinyurl.com/what is SOME. When you come back, we'll jump into the New York City social media guidelines. The New York City Department of Education social media guidelines are on the New York City Department of Education website. You can access them here, schools.nyc.gov/rules/policies/default.htm. If you haven't had a chance to copy that down, please pause this video and do so. You'll be asked some questions about the social media guidelines. Keep track of how you do. 10 or more, you're a guideline guru. You know the guidelines and are ready to get started. 7 to 9, you're a guideline grasper. You have a grasp of the guidelines but need to refer to them in order to ensure that you have all the details in order. Less than 6, you're a guideline greenhorn. You're new to the guidelines. Read them well so you can start on your social media journey. So let's begin. Get those guidelines out in front of you to refer to as you think about the answer to this question. The social media guidelines are mandated for NYC DOE employees. Do you think that's true or false? Let's take a look at the guidelines. In Section A, Introduction Purpose, we find that these social media guidelines provide guidance. Therefore, because they provide guidance, what do you think the final answer is? True or false? The answer is false. These are guidelines, they are not mandates. Next question. The social media guidelines outline communication between teachers with teachers and students with students. True or false? Let's take a look at the guidelines. In Section A, 3, and 4, we find the following: professional social media communication between DOE employees, as well as social media communication between DOE employees and DOE students. We also see in Section 4, these guidelines also address recommended practices for use of personal social media by DOE staff. Therefore, what do you think the right answer is? Do the social media guidelines outline communication between teachers with teachers and students with students? The answer, false. The answer is false because it does not outline guidelines between students and students. Those guidelines will be coming out separately. DOE employees should obtain their supervisor approval before setting up a social media presence. True or false? Taking a look at the guidelines in Section D3E, we see DOE employees should obtain their supervisor's approval before setting up a professional social media presence. So the answer is true. You should speak to your supervisor before setting up such a presence. Next question. DOE employees who engage in professional social media activities should use a separate professional account. True or false? Let's look at the guidelines. In Section D1, it says, DOE employees who decide to engage in professional social media activities should maintain separate professional and personal email addresses. So the answer to that question is true. Next question. There is no circumstance when your personal email can be monitored. Let's look at the guidelines. The guidelines in Section D1 say, regular and continuous use of personal email address for professional purposes, including social media use, may result in DOE considering the email address and the corresponding use of that address as a professional account. Answer to that question then is false. If you use your personal account for professional purposes, it can be monitored. Next, educators must have parental consent to engage in professional social media activities with students. True or false? Let's take a look at the guidelines. Section D2B says each school year, DOE parents will be notified about the professional social media activities their children will be invited to participate in? Answer to that question? False. You don't need parental consent, but you do need to notify parents. DOE supervisors or their designees should be given administrator rights providing access to the professional social media accounts established by DOE employees. In the social media guidelines, section D3D, it says DOE supervisors or their designees should be given administrator rights providing access to the professional social media accounts established by DOE employees. So the answer to that question is it is something that we think you should do. The answer is true. DOE employees should not communicate with students who are currently enrolled in DOE schools on personal social media sites. Let's look at the guidelines. According to section E1, it says, in order to maintain a professional and appropriate relationship with students, DOE employees should not communicate with students who are currently enrolled in DOE schools on social media sites. Answer to that question? True. Communicating with your students on a professional site is more than fine, but on personal sites, it is something that is not recommended. The guidelines recommend that professional social media sites be monitored daily. True or false? According to section H13 of the frequently asked questions, we see that the guidelines recommend that professional social media sites should be monitored on a regular basis. The specific frequency and level of review required for each professional social media site will depend on the particular characteristics of the site. So the answer to that question is false. We believe that the education professionals should determine how frequently they should be monitored. Supervisors are responsible for having a list of professional social media accounts in their school or office. True or false? According to section D3G, supervisors and their designees are responsible for maintaining a list of professional social media accounts within their particular school or office. Answer to this question, true. Next question. There is no way to request training to support schools in using social media. True or false? Answer to this question is in H14 of the frequently asked questions. The DOE shall provide training when assigned to set up a social media site. To schedule a training session, either contact your network or send an email to socialmediapd@schools.nyc.gov. Answer to that question is false. You can request training. Thank you so much for participating in this presentation. This has been a test of the NYC DOE guideline system. Had you wanted to read the actual social media guidelines, you can visit http://schools.nyc.gov rules/ This has been a test of the NYC DOE guideline system. Had you wanted to read the actual social media guidelines, as you know, you could visit http://schools.nyc.gov/rules/policies/default.htm. This concludes the test. You are now free to resume your regularly scheduled activities. Thank you for participating.